I'm Miranda with Alkali Creek Art, and today we'll be creating these cute watercolor Christmas cards. Better yet, I'm going to show you how to paint them only once and then recreate them as many times as you need. Let's go through the supplies you're going to need today. I have the Fluid brand of cold pressed 100% cotton watercolor paper in 140 pound weight. You can use any watercolor paper you have. I just chose this one because it was already in a size I liked and I have it laying around. Next, you're going to need water to rinse out your brushes. I like to have 2 water containers, one for my dirty brushes and one that always has clean water in it for mixing my next colors. For paint, use whatever watercolor paint you have, as long as you have red, green, and blue, or you can make green with your blue and yellow, you'll be set. I'll be using my core watercolors today. No particular reason, it just happens to be what I grabbed out of my drawer, and I really like them. I'm looking at my swatches here. Those are my color choices I have available, but you don't need that many. Like I said, you just need 3 or 4. You'll also need masking tape to secure your paper to your boards for working on them today. Next, and very important, is a paper towel or rag to dab your brush off with. I'm using a bamboo paper towel here, and they're perfect for watercolor because you can use them over and over again, and they're really absorbent. They're very nice. You're definitely going to need some good watercolor brushes for this project. You could get away doing the entire project with just one good round brush, maybe a size 6 or 8 if you need to. But my main 2 brushes are Winsor & Newton Cotman rounds, size 10 and 12, and I grabbed this little Winsor & Newton Sable brush size 4 that I ended up not liking at all, and I replaced it later with a Creative Mark Mimic Kolinsky size 2. Next, go grab your table salt. This is going to be fun. We're going to create a fun effect with that later. And you're also going to want some kind of surface to tape your paper to while working on these cards. I found these 2 clipboards in my office, but you can use whatever you can find that's small and you can rotate around while painting, such as a cookie sheet, a cutting board, even a piece of cardboard. You also want this Posca pen for fine details if you have one. If you don't have one, white gouache or acrylic paint or a white or silver gel pen would work nicely. Additionally, you'll want a gold gel pen. Mine ended up being too old to work properly, and I had to switch to gold watercolor paint instead. So if you have gold watercolor paint, then that'll be a great alternative, or even a gold Sharpie. Next, I'm removing my paper from the watercolor block because we are going to work on several paintings at the same time. I'm going to put 2 pieces on each board, and I'm going to use regular masking tape to secure them. This will help with warping and just keeps them contained in general. You'll see here in a minute that masking tape, it can be a little harsh on your paper sometimes. So I like to pull off a strip and then stick it to my shirt or my pants a few times first before taping my paper to the board. So I'm just measuring it out there, then stick it to your sleeve. If you have long sleeves, this is great. Otherwise, use your jeans, skirt, whatever you're wearing. And then it's ready to secure your paper down there. And then you will just repeat that process until all 4 sides of your cards are secured to the boards. And then just take a moment to look at your colors and then activate them with water. We'll be starting with the pretty ornament card. For the first ornament, I'll be using alizarin crimson because I like that it leans to the maroon side a little bit, but you can use any red you prefer. Now, I'm just eyeballing where I want my ornaments placed on the card, but I recommend you find a few round objects, place them where they look good to you on the paper, and then trace around them so that you get nice, even circles. It's very hard to freehand a circle, as you can see here with my struggles, so save yourself a bit of a headache and find those different sized round objects to trace around. You'll still have to rotate your paper to get your brush to the edges exactly, but it'll be a lot easier to make the object look round when you're starting with an outline. And now we will do the same thing with the other colors, the yellow, the green, the maroon, and the blue. So just repeat. Now you'll take a watered down version of each of these colors and spatter them all over the background. And if they get on your ornaments, don't worry too much. If you take a clean brush, you can clean them up, or you can just leave the spatter on your ornaments. That's up to you. So do it with each of the colors as much as you want. Now use all the same colors again and go over each ornament. It will add another layer, which will create a bit of darkness, kind of a shadow on the bottom left edge and just a little bit up into the top right, but you need to leave a little highlight section in there for light to shine. I'm using the same blue as one of the ornaments and mixing it with a little Payne's gray for the top of the ornaments and their chains. You can keep this really simple by just doing a rectangle with a wider bottom for the tops of the ornaments, leaving a little blank space for a highlight, and then just repeating diamond shapes that slightly overlap each other for the chains. And now I'll go over the tops of the ornaments one more time with a slightly more pigmented version of each color, just to darken up that shadow area once again. And because those need to dry before we can do the next step, we're going to move on to our snowman card. And that's why we set up all 4 cards in the beginning, so we can keep busy while other elements are drying. We're going to start out with a pretty simple snowman sketch. You can do the traditional snowman shape of 3 circles on top of each other if you'd like, but I chose to do the more melted version where the head is mostly round, but the body is more like a penguin shape. I didn't do this particular step next, but if you start out with the middle snowman in the middle of your card, you'll have a good idea where to put the remaining 2 snowmen and have a nicely centered card. I also added a few snowballs at the feet of each of my snowmen just for fun. Because these are made of snow and will be really light in color, make sure you erase your sketch to make it as light as possible, since the graphite will show through your watercolor. Now I'm going to take my brush and add water just from the ground up into the sky area behind the snowman as well, because as you can see from the finished picture in the corner, we want that area to be darker. So we're going to do a wet and wet wash with the blue color. Once you have all that evenly damp, take your blue and drop it into those areas, and then dab your brush off on your towel and even out the color and move it towards the top of the sky. While I have a little blue on my brush, I'll go ahead and add shadows to the bottoms of my snowmen and just a little contour to other parts of my snowfield. And once again, this one needs to dry for a while, so we'll move on to our stocking Christmas card. For this one, I'm going to do nice fat stockings, and because we're going to do 3 and I want them centered, I'll actually start drawing the middle one first this time. I'll also add a nice fluffy top to each of them. It's okay to take quite a while to get your sketch to look just right, because the human eye is actually really discerning, so it's nice to try and make sure that your stockings look as nice as you can get them. You can see that I measure across from my first one to get the bins of the other stockings to mostly line up with my first one. You can use a ruler too if you want. I erased the toe of one quite a few times to try and get it to look just right, and using a kneaded eraser instead of this one would help protect the paper better. Also, make sure you lighten your sketch as much as you can with your eraser before you start painting. Once you have all 3 drawn in, make sure you have your salt open and ready. Then wet one entire stocking with a thin, even coat of water, and then drop in your color and smooth it out however you like. It took me a little while to mix a green that I really liked for my first stocking, but I eventually came up with a color I was happy with. Once your color is in your stocking and smoothed out, drop salt in just a few places on that even color wash. Bigger salt crystals will add a more dramatic effect, but I've used regular table salt here and my results were actually somewhat disappointing. Even so, it's a neat effect that you can then repeat with the other 2 stockings. It will take a while for it to look like it's actually doing anything, and you'll need to let this dry completely before trying to remove the salt. Since that one now has to dry, we're going to take and do our Christmas tree card. And this one is just so much fun. In fact, I want to do a million of them. They just use the leftover colors that you might have in your palette. Of course, you can take new fresh colors too if you want, but just use up these colors. They're kind of like doodle trees if you've ever seen those concepts. So I just took my leftover alizarin crimson in this case, and you just draw the lines straight down, and for the trunks you just do these squiggly lines. It's so fun, it's so easy, and it just looks nice. It looks nice, it looks fun. So I'm doing the base of the entire tree right now, all with that same color. So just dropping that in, and then you can see I kind of get the other side there. So I'm not rotating my paper for the camera, so just moving my hand, getting that base color in, and once I'm happy with that, you just go back to your palette, find a different color that you like, and use that color. In this case, I'm using up the blue. And as you know, blue and red make purple, so some of these turn very purpley, and it's a nice effect. I really like it. So just do dots, and definitely try and leave white space in your tree. Don't fill it all in. It will look better if you have white space. It just makes it look really nice to leave that blank area in there. So do the best you can. And then I'm mixing up some orange I have left on my palette, or reconstituting, I guess you could say, some of the orange, pulling a hair off my brush because, you know, I have pets everywhere in here. Dropping some of that orange in. And then my next choice is kind of surprising for some people probably. I am actually going to choose a green next. And if you know anything about color, you know that green and red usually make mud. They're opposites, so they mute each other out. But I am doing it in a really careful way because I wanted a little green in here, and my red is drying. It's not fully dry, so I kind of get away with it, and I also don't mind having a little brown in this tree. So then I move on to the others, blues, greens, purples. This one starts with an orange base, and I put the turquoise on it, and then I kind of go back, and there's the red. Just this one was kind of muted and I needed more color, so there we go. So those have to dry. We are moving on back to our ornaments, and we need the white Posca pen for this. A white gel pen would work too, or the acrylic paint like I mentioned before, and you're just going to draw in snowflakes. And you don't really have to know how to draw a snowflake. Just look up some pictures and kind of copy what you see, but you can start with an asterisk. Basically, you draw a straight line down, one across, and then cross it one more time, and then add these little things that come out from it pointing up. And find other pictures of the snowflakes and just do the best you can and then dot them. And we move on to the snowman, and just getting some clean water. And we're going to do the scarves, and this is so much fun. I want to do a red scarf, 2 red scarves, and a green one. So just reconstitute a red that you like. This one I think is my scarlet red, and you'll just draw a line down for the tail of the scarf and one more next to it, and then you basically put the little fluffy things for the edge and then cross the scarf to make checkers, basically is how I did it. And then you'll do the same thing with the neck part or the other tail of the scarf as well. So basically it is repeating that same thing, 2 lines, the little tail feathers on these tails, and then crossing them for checker marks. And it kind of makes it look knitted or homemade. And so it's a simple process, doesn't take much, I don't know, not much skill, I guess you could say. You just got to do a couple of lines. The biggest part is lining the neck part of the scarf up with where you think the snowman's face is going to be. So you can see I'm just putting another line across there, kind of curving it for the edge of his shoulder. And then I'll put another line, like so. Such a delicate small brush. It's fun to use, actually. This is that creative mark I barely mentioned in the beginning of the video, that brush there, and I really like it. And then cross it. Yeah. Kind of nitpicking. And you'll repeat with a green scarf, and you'll repeat one more red scarf. So you'll see that come up here in just a second. Okay. Assess, clean brush, move on. There we go. Green scarf, done. Second red scarf done. I forgot the second tail on this guy, but that's okay because sometimes both tails don't show. Oh, for these hats, just grab any winter picture of hats you like and just try and copy their shapes. You don't have to get exact, just copy their shapes the best you can. And then I'm putting in with sepia and Payne's gray mixed up their faces, their little noses, and their arms. So again, that's sepia and Payne's gray mixed together. And there you have the little snowman. I'm deepening some of the shadows, making the snowballs show up a little bit better. And then here we're going to start on the snowflakes in the back. So you'll just do an asterisk again, but an asterisk with one extra line through it. So that one I did 3, but the one before that I did 4 lines. You kind of have to look at your shape and see, is 3 lines enough, 4 lines, what does it need? And just kind of do them over the background, but don't overdo them. You don't want too many of them. And then we're moving on to that. And you can see the salt effects here. It's pretty neat on the blue one, but the others were and I couldn't even get the salt off the green one. So I love what it did on the blue. I would choose higher grain salt or bigger grain salt for the next project for sure. And then for these tops, water them, drop the color in, and it just looks gorgeous. And then put a darker bit of color for those tags that hold the stockings on the shelf. And then I'm putting a darker shadow under the edges of the stockings so they look a little more 3D. And that does the stockings. We're moving back to the trees. Again, remember my gel pen I said in the beginning didn't work, so I got out my metallic paint, and it takes forever to reconstitute, but just take whatever gold you have and do the stars on the top of the trees, round dots on them for ornaments, and I gave them a gold base, and oh, it just looks so pretty. Spatter the stockings. This is the next step for your stockings. And then, oh, I just messed up by writing this. I'm not a letterer, so I don't recommend lettering them yourself because I just messed that one up. Untaping's the most fun part, especially on the snowman one. Sign them all. I'm just doing little initials. And there we have our stocking. So pretty. Not our stocking, our ornaments. I knew what I meant. Snowman. Love that one. That's my favorite. Trees. I want to do a million of those. Like I said, they were so much fun. Use up my old paint on my palette. Just love it. Lackluster stockings. They looked better after I went back and looked at it later. That lettering wasn't that awful, but it wasn't my favorite. So now for printing in bulk, you'll want this. This is a printer paper that's really nice. I have a color laser digital. That did not make sense. A color laser printer, and I like that paper. So software. I'm going to show you how to do this in Photoshop at first, but don't worry, you don't have to have this expensive program. You can do it in Paint, and I'll show that after this. So mine came in upside down, so I just have to do an image rotation 180 degrees. And my picture isn't perfect, but that's okay. So the crop button is right there, and I'm just going to crop it so that it's not going to show that crookedness. And since I'm losing the border on that one side to make up for that, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it on this side for the most part as well. A little bit down on the top. Accept that crop. And this one I'm going to leave alone. I don't want any words on this one. I like the snowmen just as they are. So then I will go to my other one that I will show you how to put the words on, and open that one. And I have to rotate this one counterclockwise, crop it. I'm leaving room at the bottom there so that I can put my wording. I want to put Merry Christmas at the bottom, so I might pull that bottom down even a little bit more. My mouse is right in a crack, so it doesn't want to work. All right, accept that crop, and then you'll take the text tool, pick your color. I'm going to do a green, and I can do a color picker from my picture itself, so we'll try that green and see if we like that or not. Click where you want it, type in what you want, and then you just have to triple click it. If you want to select it all, you can make it a little bit bigger or choose a different font, maybe something that is a little bit cursive. It gives you all kinds of samples here, so you can choose one that you really like. I'm going to choose that one and make it a little bit bigger. Move tool over there on the left, scoot it over. And I'm going to scoot it down a little with my arrow key on my keyboard. And I like it. So we're just going to save it. This one's going to be ornaments. Helps if you spell it right. Cropped with text. And I'm going to make this one a JPEG. Save. Okay. So you can print that as is, or you can print multiples of them on one page, and I'll show you how to do that at the end. Let's do the paint at the moment for cropping this. We'll use Microsoft Paint instead. Your image, right click, open with Paint. It comes in really large, so just so I can see it, I'm going to zoom out on the slider, one click. I will rotate this left. You'll have to do yours whichever direction yours came in. I'm going to select all and hit crop and drag the crop square where I need it to be. Now because mine came in so crooked, I'm going to have that little bit of black at the top right corner, but if I go right up next to my signature, I can get away without it. Let go of the mouse and click crop again. All right, that looks okay. Then we want to choose a text color. I'm going to choose this gold. Click the text button. Down on my image, I will then type in Merry Christmas. Make that a little smaller just by dragging the edges, and then I kind of need to eyeball it to the middle. Maybe I want it down just a little bit farther. Oh, I think I lost it. That's the thing with paint, it's kind of tricky. If you lose your text tool, then you have to go back to this menu and hit select, and really you just need to give up and take it as it is with paint. So luckily that dropped and ended up in a really nice place. So now I can just save this as it is, and it'll go into the Christmas cards one, and this will be the trees with text as a JPEG, and save. So that'll print actually really nicely. Now that you have your cropped images, I have my 3 because I got rid of my stockings. You might have 4, and 4 would work better for this. And I will open up Word. You'll have to use whatever word processing software you have or image editing software. You could use Paint or Photoshop again. I like Word because it's just easy, 8.5 by 11. I can see the edges. I'm going to click Layout and change the orientation right away to Landscape. And the margins I'm going to customize to be 1/4 inch on every edge. All right, and then I'm going to zoom out so you can see the whole page. And I'm going to insert pictures. So I just have to go to my pictures where my cropped ones are and select all 3 and insert them. And they come in nice and big, but we are going to change that so that we can print 4 pictures at a time. So you just have to drag them. Actually, you have to make them small first, and then you can drag them up there. So you want to change the align to be tight on each of them. So I just hit this little button and I do tight, and that lets me edit them and move them wherever I want. So that one's being stubborn on me, but I can just keep making it smaller. We'll fix this. We will go to picture. Well, we're already at picture format. Wrap text tight. There we go. Now I can drag it where I want it. Okay, so I only have the 3 pictures like we were talking about. So just gonna make sure they're clear up at their print border edges. Gonna make them as big as I can so they're not quite the same size, but I'm gonna just make them where they all cut the same. And if you want to get real smart about it, you'll jam them up next to each other like that. You can use the keyboard to get them real close there. There we go. Same with this one. You'll jam it up clear to the other one. And then the one you like the most, maybe if you only have 3 like me, make sure that's right. I'm gonna just make a copy and I'm gonna paste it down into this 4th slot. All right, now I'll use the keyboard to get these tight. All right, looks good. So now when I print it, I'm printing 4 cards at one time, and then I will cut it and paste these on top of just cheap cardstock cards instead of using expensive watercolor paper. So you did the painting once and you can put it on as many cards as you want. So if there was only one painting you liked, then you just do this process for that one painting. If you had the 4, then you'll be set and you can print this out as many times as you need for as many cards as you need. So you saw the printout, and I'm just taking a paper cutter and cutting them apart. And these turned out smaller, like 4 by 3, so, or 3.5 by 5 maybe. So if you want bigger cards, you just print less per page. And then you just take cheap cardstock or cheap card bases and put them on top. So you can see the snowman looks really nice on the blue. Just my favorite little card there. And they also look great on the other colors too, but these will look very nice on plain white cardstock card bases as well. So don't feel like you have to have the color. They do just fine on plain white. There's the ornaments. Love how that printed out the Merry Christmas at the bottom. Looks nice. And the gold in person, that gold Merry Christmas on the trees really shows up beautifully. Love how it turned out. So I hope you've enjoyed this. It's a little bit of a lengthy process, but we came out with 4 decent cards. Even the stocking one's not that terrible anymore now that I've had some time away from it. And I hope you'll try these. Let me know how it goes in the comments below. Also, if computers aren't your thing, subscribe because I will have a video coming out about how to do bulk Christmas cards with no printer required.